I wanted to bring this episode to you. It's a special episode where we are digging into your questions. So this episode is for you. If you have low AMH, if you have high FSH, if you have premature ovarian failure or premature ovarian insufficiency, if you have PCOS, unexplained infertility, if you have issues with your luteal phase, if you want to know what to do for egg health, if you are ready to give up caffeine but not sure why you should do this, if you are not sure which diet to try. So we are digging into your questions. Excited for you to listen to this episode, and take care. Hey there. Thanks so much for listening to the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast. And I've got a favor to ask you. If you are enjoying learning about the functional approach to fertility, consider going to iTunes and rating and reviewing the podcast. This is how it helps the show reach more people that are struggling with infertility, knowing that there's another approach that really can get to the bottom of why it's not working in the first place. So all you need to do is, if you're on the app or the desktop, just go in and consider leaving a 5-star rating and leave a review. And there is step-by-step instructions in the show notes showing you exactly how to do that. So if you can just take a few minutes, just take the few minutes right now. You can pause this recording, come back, leave the review. It would really mean the world to me and help others that are on the fertility journey as well. Take care. Hey there. I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 2 spots available per month to work with us. So the Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery call is for action takers. And really people who are ready to move forward so they can finally have their baby. And if you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. So if you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, FabFertile.com and click on book a free call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. That's FabFertile, FabFertile.com, and click on book a free call. One theme that keeps coming up with the couples in our FabFertile Couples Coaching Program is sleep. Whether it's insomnia, having a hard time falling asleep, waking up at night, or feeling tired when we wake up, sleep is critical for fertility and hormones. And that's why I'm so excited to have Blue Blocks as our podcast sponsor. So we're exposed to blue and green light from our phones, our tablets, our computers, indoor lights, and more. And this exposure impacts our melatonin production. And melatonin is essential for both female and male fertility. It helps determine the frequency and duration of our cycle and impacts sperm. There's lots of blue light blocking glasses on the market, but the ones from Blue Blocks, they've actually compared other popular brands, and Blue Blocks block 100% of blue and green light while other brands fall short. So I have their sleep glasses. They have red lenses, and the ones I have are a little translucent frame, and they're so stylish and really cool. And so they eliminate 100% of the blue and green light in the 400 nanometer to 550 nanometer range. So this is exact range that has been shown in clinical studies to disrupt melatonin and negatively impact your sleep. So all you do is wear your sleep glasses after sunset until it's time for bed, and you'll notice improved sleep after just one use. And it's also cool to use when you're flying for managing jet lag. So I got to say I was a little skeptical about the noticing improvement after one use, but literally I use these glasses and my sleep is actually already pretty good. I used them for one day, and I have to say after one day, I had the best sleep of my life. I just felt so rested. So these glasses, they ship free and they're tracked for all orders anywhere in the world. And also they have all their frames come in prescription, non-prescription, and reading glasses. Plus you can send in your frames and they'll add the blue light blocking and green light blocking lenses to your frame. So this is an easy hack that you can add to your fertility toolkit. All you do is go to BlueBlocks, BLUBLOX.com. Use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast at checkout and receive a 15% discount. That's BlueBlocks, BLUBLOX.com, and use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast to receive your 15% discount. I didn't need to go to donor eggs. Obviously, I don't regret it. I have beautiful children. I could have done things differently, restored. I was still cycling back in my 20s. I could have looked at my health, the environmental toxins, the stress I was under.
Many, many women are being told their eggs are too old. That's often merely an assumption that's not based on actual evidence. The reason being that there is no direct test of egg quality. You can't test egg quality.
It's the man who's got a food sensitivity or he has a zinc deficiency.
Like there can be a root cause to these symptoms that are, quote unquote, period problems, that the doctor will pass you a pill without any question of why.
And some part of you knows that if you can reframe your journey from not want to struggle, or if it is struggle, learn how to embrace the struggle. Learn how to embrace it.
Most conditions in the child occur during the 9 months of development. It's the genetic switches are turned on or turned off, and they're pre-programmed. So you are in such a powerful, amazing position to do amazing things for your kids.
Why is IVF the first step? Because we believe it should be the last step. Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, the founder of Fab Fertile and your host, and I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone struggling with infertility, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. So today I'm excited to welcome back Brandy Buskow to the podcast, and today we're answering your questions. So definitely check out episode number 6 for a functional medicine 101 talk, plus a look at some of the tools we use to help couples conceive. And so Brandy is part of my team here at Fab Fertile, and she's an integral part of our couples coaching program, which uses functional lab testing, diet, and lifestyle changes to dramatically improve conception. So if you're struggling with infertility, your body is desperately trying to tell you something, and focusing on your health will either help you get pregnant naturally, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, it will improve your chances of success. Brandy is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a certified transformational health coach, and also an EFT practitioner. So tapping. And so thanks so much for listening. And I'm so thankful that you are here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who is on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Okay, so we're going to be digging into some questions here. But before we get going, I obviously want you to check out the disclaimer at the end of the podcast and just talk about it now that obviously we are not doctors. Please be sure to consult your physician before making any of these changes. And our goal here is always to educate you so you can be empowered to know that there's changes you can make before you go to the fertility clinic. Obviously, right now, the clinics are closed. It's the best time to prepare your body naturally for a baby. We don't need to wait for them to open. So you can take action now. So with that, we're just going to dig right into these questions. So we're going to start with Kiki. So Kiki, and when I think of that, Kiki, I was singing the song all day long from Drake. So sorry, pardon me with the... So, okay, so Kiki is 37. She has PCOS and type 2 diabetes, and she was diagnosed with POF last year as well. So her question is, can I still become pregnant naturally with my diagnosis? Her AMH is at 0.02 and her FSH is at 56.8. Is it possible to raise the AMH and lower the FSH? Yeah, so we do see a number of people with premature ovarian failure or premature ovarian insufficiency, as it's called now. Yeah, we definitely, we've helped people get pregnant with 0.09 AMH. So it's not necessarily focusing on those AMH levels, and FSH goes up and down. So let's I haven't come across someone that has POF and PCOS with type 2 diabetes. So that's an interesting combination. What's your some thoughts there, Brandy?
I mean, she's got some diagnosis. She's got type 2 diabetes. She's got PCOS. I mean, those are two really big medical conditions. And again, we are not doctors, so we don't focus on the diagnosis. We don't focus on the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, PCOS, or POF. We focus on who is this person, what do they have going on, and what can we do or recommend that they can do lifestyle-wise to make changes. So we know with type 2 diabetes, this is related to mostly blood sugar regulation. So this is probably going to be the biggest needle mover for you. If you can get control of your type 2 diabetes, you will see a lot of really positive health improvements. Now, is that going to translate into a healthy cycle and ovulation and fertility? I can't tell you that. I don't know. But what I do know is that everything that you can do to put yourself in the best health possible will increase your chances dramatically. So I would focus on really making sure that you are getting your blood sugar balanced, not relying on the medication. Now, I'm not saying don't take medication if you're on metformin or something else. Obviously, do not stop taking your medication. But when it comes to PCOS and type 2 diabetes, a lot of it is lifestyle. So you need to be moving. And that's not to say that you're going to go and start doing CrossFit and marathons, but you need to be moving your body every day. You need to be sleeping Sleeping is extremely important. So if you are not getting enough sleep, that can actually make your blood sugar dysregulation worse.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make sure that you're working on your mental emotional stressors. So if you're really stressed out and, there's some trauma, or you're arguing with your spouse, or you hate your job, or whatever it is, that's going to contribute to the stress load on your body. And I would really, really look at your diet. And I know this is a big one and it's hard for people. And if that's something that you struggle with, there are lots of experts out there that can help, especially if you're having issues with cravings and those sorts of things. Now, I'm not going to say that, okay, you have type 2 diabetes, so you need to do a specific diet. But what you do need to look at is you need to look at what works for you, what doesn't. That is going to have the biggest impact, and it's going to be different person to person. So for some people, they may need to do a low carb diet in order to keep things balanced, and really focusing on nutrient dense foods, really high quality fats and proteins, and lots of cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, colorful vegetables. Those are all going to be really important. So I do think there's a lot of things you can do with lifestyle that can make changes and improvements in your health and increase your chances of getting pregnant. Can I guarantee that it will happen? No, but I think you can make some really big shifts.
Yeah, and there's going to be a theme in here. You're going to see that as far as diet, so looking at the elimination diet and having both you and your partner do that, you can start right away. And there's a podcast episode, how and why did you do the elimination diet? Like if you look at PCOS diet and studies, there are some recommendations there to look at gluten-free. We definitely see with POF or POI, like a lot of people we work with have high sensitivity to gluten, so non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So looking at that. So the elimination diet will then kind of help you tweak into that. Depending, you could look at the AIP diet as well, the autoimmune protocol diet, which there's information about that on the podcast as well when you search AIP diet. Especially for POF, POI, it's very limited research, but the episode I did with Angie Alt talking about AIP and Crohn's, she's had people do the AIP diet with POF and POI and get pregnant naturally, and so have we. More anecdotal information. Potentially, is it an autoimmune? We don't know, but that might be something to explore as well in there with the diet piece. And yes, like Brandy was saying, with sleep, which is key, which impacts your blood sugar the entire next day if you're not getting proper sleep. So getting a sleep routine going, taking the phone out of the room would be some good steps. And there's a podcast episode again called Sleep and Sleep Apnea, actually with a biological dentist. It's like extremely informative podcast episode. You can search that as well on this podcast. So check that out, but definitely not to, get focused on those AMH numbers, because people can get pregnant with, if you listen to the top of the podcast there, people getting pregnant with AMH of 0. So it's looking at the whole body, as Brandy's saying, and we're looking at your health history and looking at everything and not just myopically focusing on the diagnosis.
Yeah, and the other two things I just wanted to put in here, I do have a caveat when it comes to people going gluten-free, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll just get the gluten-free alternative to what they're normally eating. And a lot of times those are worse for you in terms of blood sugar regulation than the gluten-filled products, because gluten-free products are filled with starches, and starches are basically break down into sugar, and they are not friendly to your blood sugar. So if you are going to go gluten-free, I would say focus on whole foods and try not to just replace it with the gluten-free packaged foods, because those, just because it's gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. And so really, really focus on whole real foods. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too is it might be worthwhile, if you are interested in doing some testing, I would also look at food sensitivity testing, because there may be some foods that you're eating that are causing a stress response, which can also impact your blood sugar. So if there's anything, if you're limited to funds and you want to just dip your toe in testing, I would start with food sensitivity testing, because that can be really helpful.
Yeah, those naturally gluten-free foods. I know when I first went gluten-free, it was like, I started eating gluten-free cookies and filled with corn and all sorts of other chemicals and stuff. So the more naturally gluten-free you can get is the better. But again, when in the beginning, you may need to do the best you can. But as Brandy was saying, watching out for those ones that are going to spike the blood sugar, which is key. And part of this question for Kiki actually is, so she's overweight and her insurance will not cover any fertility treatments until her BMI is 38.5 or below. And so the best approach for losing weight with PCOS. So we talked about some recommendations there. So as Brandy was saying, the low glycemic foods, even high fiber foods, apple cider vinegar too can be helpful. The sweeteners. Want to talk a little bit about sweeteners, Brandy?
Ideally, if you can, you need to, if you are having a lot of carbohydrates cravings and you're addicted to sugar, the best thing you can do is get it out. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I have a lot of experience with that. That's something that I still deal with. And so there's a lot of emotional connection there. I would really focus on emotions. And then if you do need something sweet, the ones that I recommend pretty much also exclusively is just stevia. I know a lot of people won't like that. There's a lot of other sweeteners on the market like xylitol and erythritol and monk fruit. The problem is that you could go too crazy on those, and some of them can disrupt your gut microbiome and produce a lot of gas and not make you feel good and make you feel bloated. So a lot of those low carb or ketogenic things out there, like I don't want to name names, but there's protein bars and low carb cookies and keto cookies and all of these things, but they're generally filled with fibers that are supposedly like non-soluble, so it's not going to spike your blood sugar. And then they have a lot of different sweeteners in there, which can cause a lot of gas and bloating and are kind of defeating the purpose. So if you do need something sweet, stick with low glycemic berries, raspberries, strawberries, those sorts of things, and just a little bit of stevia. And the best stevia that doesn't have a bad aftertaste, I personally really like the Now brand stevia, and it's stevia glycerate, so it's not in an alcohol base, it's in a glycerin base. And they've got a lot of different flavors, and it works really well. So you could add it to some tea. You could, just use it in different areas. And the other thing that I will mention with PCOS and diabetes is I would look at your dairy intake. Mm-hmm. Dairy can be very, very inflammatory, and it can also lead to cravings. You may find taking dairy out of your diet will actually make a really big difference in your inflammation. You may lose like water weight because you're losing inflammation. And that's another thing that concerns me about a lot of low carb diets and ketogenic diets is there are a lot of them out there that focus on adding a lot of dairy to replace things, and that isn't always necessarily the best idea.
Yeah, we did a podcast earlier in the podcast with Maria Emmerich, and she has a dairy-free keto book. To me, with the fertility diet and the Harvard Nurses study, they recommend doing full-fat dairy, but let's see if you have an intolerance to it first. And that's why the elimination diet is a good place to start to see if there's an issue, and then you can see exactly what it is. Like we have people bring it back in all the time, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, bring back in dairy, it's giving me gas or bloating, and it's different for everyone. And so then you actually know. But yeah, with also, like we were talking about before, with weight, it would be looking at your sleep, which is key, and your stress. So if there's any trauma, mental, emotional stress, obviously going through infertility in itself is stressful. So addressing those. And we have some free resources. There's a fertility yoga download that you can go to Fab Fertile and just look at my freebies. So there's a fertility yoga download and a guided fertility visualization. So you can check those out and download and do those before bed or in the morning. And her question is still going. So avoiding mood swings and irritability. So that's with balancing the blood sugar.
That's going to be, that one's hard without having more details. Honestly, Kiki, not that I'm trying to push the program, but I think you have a lot of things going on and a lot of opportunities for you that we call them healing opportunities, not that we diagnose, treat, or heal. We don't promise any of those things, but we call them healing opportunities. So areas where lifestyle changes can make a big difference. And so if you are having a lot of mood imbalances, that can definitely be blood sugar. That could be sleep. That could be hormonal. So I would really consider, if you can, looking into doing some testing, working with a coach who can keep you accountable and get you on a program that is really you are empowering yourself. We are empowering you to take control of your health. And there's a lot of things that you can do. And sometimes you need support. So even us as coaches, we need support. We need our own coaches. We can't do it on our own. So definitely think about those things. Mood swings can be so many different issues. Like you said, Sarah, blood sugar, but it could be hormonal. It could be gut imbalances because she's not getting neurotransmitters. It just depends. So a lot of things that you could focus on and work on.
Yeah, I definitely had that irritability, and then worked on stress, and then for me, food sensitivities and gut health. So it was a combination of all of them. But yeah, as you say, so looking at blood sugar imbalance, you could look at a good probiotic. Magnesium can help with cravings too. I think you recommend putting it on lotion, putting on your foot before you go to bed, your feet before you go to bed, not the one foot, the feet before you go to bed. And also cinnamon is good for anti-inflammatory as well.
Yes, there are a lot of different things you can do. You can try to do things on your own, but I would really recommend, whatever your situation is, if you can afford it, look into some coaching so you have somebody who can guide you and give you some guidance and suggestions and keep you accountable along the way.
Yeah, it'll just move you forward faster. Okay, so next one we have here is from Angel. So have you found anything that lowers or helps to balance out high FSH, especially when related to autoimmune? So she has Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, and her last blood test showed her antibodies were over 900. We see this a lot with undiagnosed hypothyroidism, autoimmune diseases. Yeah, it's not just focusing on the high FSH, what else is going on in your body? So an autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, lots to help with a functional approach for sure. Brandy, do you want to dig in?
Yeah, so I know some people may disagree with how my thought process in it, but it doesn't matter to me what your FSH and your AMH are. I don't even look at those numbers just because unfortunately, when you are in the space of infertility, those are the numbers that are focused on and that are used sometimes to make a diagnosis. But for somebody who has Hashimoto's and has high antibodies, that it needs to be your main focus, is getting those antibodies down and lowered, and really trying to control and manage your Hashimoto's, because that can have a huge, huge impact on your cycle and your ability to get pregnant. And so again, like you said, Sarah, we're going to see a lot of themes. Lifestyle. Anybody with an autoimmune disease, lifestyle has the biggest impact. Stress, sleep, nutrient-dense foods, eliminating food sensitivities, especially gluten and dairy and soy. Those are really, really big ones. So I would really look at the lifestyle and look at your diet, because those are the biggest needle movers that you can make to affect your Hashimoto's and those antibodies. A lot of people want to say, oh, well, can you tell me a supplement that's going to fix it? And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. There is no one supplement that's going to lower antibodies, or no one supplement that's going to improve your FSH. It's a multifaceted approach, and it takes work. It does take work on your part, but I guarantee you the rewards you will see by putting that effort in and making those lifestyle changes will be huge, because you'll see improvements in how you feel with your energy, how you sleep, your mood. All of those things are going to improve with some of those lifestyle changes.
Yeah, addressing those stressors like I've talked about before. So looking at your food sensitivities, in this case, do the elimination diet for sure if you haven't already. Definitely, you potentially may not want to bring back in gluten if you are currently taking it out. If it's already out, then don't bring it back in unless you need to see exactly what it does to your body. Sometimes people just want to know. But typically with an autoimmune disease, not bringing it back in. So do the elimination diet, you and your partner. And then also looking at gut health. So we do stool testing to see if there's any parasites, bacteria infections, fungal infections, the environmental toxins. You need to look at those. There's you can look up on the podcast. We talk about cleaning products. You can look up that. So environmental toxins there, and also personal care products, looking at that, and your mental emotional stress. Like, this is not just all about you eating this perfect diet and addressing the gut infections. The mental emotional side of this stuff is key. Typically with the autoimmune disease, ask, well, what happened before you were diagnosed? And a lot of times it is mental emotional things, either a death or like something traumatic happening. Not always, but some of the time. And so be able to address those things. And then now you're dealing with infertility, which in itself is stressful in itself. So there's lots of things on the podcast where we talk about identifying your infertility triggers, being able to actually visualize it working depending on where you are in your journey. Sometimes people can get into a very dark place and can't even see it working. So if that's where you are, then like before you start doing the diet, and then the other things, like really, really working on that mental emotional stress first.
Yeah, absolutely. And this may sound a little bit woo-woo, but I am pulling from my emotional freedom technique certification and kind of a lot of the trauma work that I've done with people. And when you think about the thyroid and Hashimoto's, it's located in the throat, which is related to the throat chakra. And oftentimes, especially as women, I mean, women tend to have more issues with thyroid, but we're also the ones that tend to not speak our truth or have experiences where we were told to be quiet and we weren't allowed to be truthful or loud. We were told that we needed to kind of sink into the background, or we weren't allowed to express our feelings because they weren't convenient. So I would think about some of those things as well. That's not to say that any trauma related to that will 100% be the reason for thyroid or Hashimoto's, but definitely something to think about. Think about your past, and it doesn't need to be a super traumatic experience. It could be one experience you had as a child where you were told to sit still and be quiet and your voice didn't matter and they didn't want to hear what you had to say. And that could have triggered something in your subconscious mind. Some things to think about, and you know, maybe that's where you do some meditation. If some of those things come up, journal them and write them out and see if maybe there are potential triggers there that are contributing to what you're dealing with today.
Yeah, as I said before, we see this a lot, and this is the case for me. I have hypothyroidism as well. And so these are things that I work on all the time to be able to, you know, you start to see when you're going into that, just reacting instead of responding, and being able to, if you need to journal, if that works for you, or talking it out. But a lot of it, instead of just pushing it down and saying it doesn't matter. So to get it out, so then you can start to process it. Okay, so the next one we have is Caitlin. So Caitlin's 35. She's been trying for 2 years. She had a miscarriage at 8. She does have 2 children, 7 and 10, and her spouse has two children from a previous marriage. So she has a very low TSH at 0.02. She says her T3 and her T4 are normal. Her chiropractor has muscle tested and said she has issues with the hypothalamus and the pituitary were off. So he's recommended some supplements. And so she's saying, is low TSH a reason for not getting pregnant? And she is ovulating and she has a normal period. So what are your thoughts? Her kids are 7 and 10.
This is where low TSH maybe, but if your T4 and T3 are normal, and normal is subjective. So is it normal in the conventional range or normal in the functional range? Without having more information, just some thoughts that I have. With the muscle testing, with the hypothalamus is kind of the start of a loop that talks to the thyroid, talks to the adrenals, talks to the ovaries. They're all endocrine glands that talk to each other. And so if any of them are imbalanced, then they can start to miscommunicate and cause issues. And so my first thought that came up, and I could be totally off base, but you have 2 kids, you're with a partner that also has kids. So it sounds like potentially maybe there was some, again, I don't know, maybe divorce or separation, and maybe a lot of stressors going on. And so potentially maybe with your kids, you're depleted. I mean, I have 10-year-olds, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and my adrenals are extremely depleted. And that would be a big reason why I wouldn't be able to get pregnant, would be because I'm stressed out. So that's something for you to think about and look at. Without doing further testing, it's really hard to say. Potentially the thyroid, but I would say more often than not, it's probably something else, probably stress. And I'd be interested also to know what other, you've been trying for 2 years, you did have a miscarriage. Did they do any follow-up testing? Was there a reason that they told you? Maybe just looking for a little bit more information.
Yeah, so you can go to FabFertile. There's a blog on miscarriage, and we kind of dig into some of the different reasons for miscarriage. So we do talk about the thyroid in there. You can also go to the podcast episode, Blood Chemistry, and we review in depth the blood chemistry panel using the ranges of functional medicine ranges. Again, we're not diagnosing, we're educating. So you may have been told your T3 and T4 are normal, but are they normal with the functional levels? So definitely check out those 2 resources and see if there's anything that's resonating there with you. Okay, so the next one we have is Heidi. So Heidi she's preparing for pregnancy in the next few years. She has a family history of unexplained infertility. She wants to get her body healthy for when they want to have kids down the line. and she's finding it very overwhelming with many things that can be going wrong. I think she's dealing with a lot of worry. So this is great to come and think about this beforehand. I interviewed Dr. Ben Lynch, and definitely go and check out that podcast where we talk about the importance of making sure your prenatal has methylated folate, not folic acid, but also the MTHFR gene, which could be part of could be reasons for miscarriage. But anyways, it's more about methylation is the episode. So definitely listen to that episode. And he talks about, why are we spending 18 to 12 months to 18 months planning our wedding and then getting pregnant? We typically want to get pregnant the first month. Why aren't we switching that around? So spending that 12 to 18 months preparing your body. And to me, it's like first of all, looking to seeing what you're eating. And if you can, switch to an organic diet. Right now we're in the middle of a huge food experiment, or food being sprayed with herbicides and pesticides that are linked to infertility and a whole host of other diseases. So making sure that you're eating, organic, nutrient-dense diet. To me, like making sure you're getting enough water. A lot of people I speak to are only drinking, a couple glasses a day. That was the case for me. So you want to make sure you're staying hydrated and making sure it's filtered. We're going to go in a little bit later in the podcast talking about some water filter options, but really that's important for the cervical mucus, for the egg to get to the sperm, the sperm to get to the egg. So looking at being hydrated. And then, pick something that works for you for self-care. And if it's meditation, if it's like, hanging out with your dog, or hanging out with your partner, playing a game, whatever it is for you, when you think of self-care, the things you love to do, those are some good things to start right now. You can do the elimination diet if you think you may have some food sensitivity. So you can listen to that episode as well. Anything coming up for you, Brandy?
Yeah. So, like you said, this is an amazing thing. I wish everybody would do that, get themselves ready.
Smart.
So I would focus on the best nutrition possible. If you can't do organic, then that's okay, but get the most nutrient dense foods as possible so that you can get as much nutrition into your body as you can. I would start tracking your cycles so that you can start to get an idea of, on average, when do you ovulate? When is that fertile window for you? So remember, when you ovulate, it's already too late. So you need to be aware of your cervical mucus changes so that you can see when your most fertile time is. And so do you have 2 days of fertile window? Do you have 3 days? What does that look like for you? Then I would also track how your luteal phase is. So how long from the time you ovulate until you get your period. A lot of women, especially if they've been on birth control for any period of time and they come off, their luteal phases can tend to be short. So if you can find that out by tracking your cycle, then you can work on lengthening that luteal phase. And there's some pretty simple things you could do to do that. You could do some seed cycling to support your progesterone. You could add a B complex, especially B6 can be really helpful for extending the luteal phase. So really focusing on that. I would also tell you, stressing about it is not going to make it better. So, we've all heard this, and it's not to make light of the situation, but you've heard of the couples who try and they've scheduled when they're going to have sex, and everything is scheduled and they're tracking everything, and they don't get pregnant. And then when they finally say, you know what, I don't care, we're going on a vacation, I want to enjoy myself and not worry about this anymore, that's when they get pregnant. So really focusing on trying not to stress it out, make it fun. Enjoy yourselves, get to know your body, get to know your partner's body. And it's going to be really important for your partner to make sure that they're healthy, because it takes two. So you need to make sure that your partner has healthy sperm, because without that, it's going to make it harder. So both of you should be in this together. And I would also look at, starting to look into switching your personal care products to just lessen the toxic burden on your body. And it's just simple switches. As you run out of something, buy something that's a little bit cleaner. And the best thing you could do is use the Skin Deep database. They can give you some alternatives and some ideas, and start looking into that. But I just want to say, commend you for thinking about this. This is really, really important.
Yeah. So you can check out the blog on Fab Fertile, and we talk about cervical mucus, how to track it, do your basal body temperature, and and looking at your cervical mucus. Sometimes it can take a couple months to figure that out, but that's definitely a good thing to get to know your body. Seed cycling, there's a podcast about seed cycling. We tell you exactly how to do that. So it's some easy steps there. And then, as we said before, the personal care, there's one on personal care products. And but yeah, as Brandy was saying, the best place to do is the Skin Deep database to check the ones you have, but don't panic. And when those ones expire, then you can, or when they're finished, you can get new ones. Okay, great. So the next one we have is baby Dust. So she's 39. She has a uterine septum removed last year. Her husband's 48. His sperm is great. She says they're healthy but old. I don't think that's old, but anyway, I'm 49, so it feels young. Financially, fertility treatment is not an option, and naturally as our only choice. Didn't get any other information from her. Yeah, what's your take on that?
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So, without more information than that, I'd be wondering, do they have a history of, have they been trying for a really long time and not been successful? Is there a history of getting pregnant and maybe having a miscarriage? How are your cycles? Are your cycles regular? That's going to be a big clue. If your cycles are irregular and they've been like that for a while, then as we age, unfortunately, it starts to get a little bit harder to regulate those. So I would be thinking about that. I would be tracking your cycles and being really on point, kind of the way I answered it, the previous question of if your cycles are regular, tracking them and really seeing if you are ovulating, because then that way if you are ovulating, then there is a chance. So figuring out when that window is. And one thing that I found, and I don't just know from personal experience, but I don't think women were taught very well enough to know the thought is, well, when I ovulate, that's when I can get pregnant. But the reality is that there are fertile days that you have before you actually ovulate. Yeah. And so if you wait to have sex when you ovulate, or let's say you use an ovulation predictor kit, or you see that temperature rise and you've been tracking your temperature, it may be too late. So getting familiar with your cervical mucus is one of the best things you can do. And getting familiar with the trends in your body temperature is also one of the best things you can do, because then you can see, okay, I have normally 3 days of pretty fertile cervical mucus. This is the window. This is when I know I need to do it. And so getting to know your cycle is going to be helpful. And the same thing with the luteal phase. So luteal phase is from the day you ovulate until the day that your first day that you bleed. And in order for you to become pregnant, you need to have a long enough luteal phase that the egg has a chance to implant itself. So it ideally should be over 10 days. So looking at that and seeing, and it's pretty common for women for their luteal phases to, like I said, if they've been on birth control, to be shorter, or as we age, some months we don't ovulate, or some months our luteal phases can be short. So those are some of the things I would say to look at right now without having more information. And once you have the data, then you can then look further into, okay, now I know what do I need to do to, let's say, improve my luteal phase, or what do I need to do to improve my cervical mucus, because maybe you only have 1 day where it's fertile. There are things you can do to improve that. I'll put a little bit of hints in here. Sarah alluded to hydration. Hydration is key. If you're not hydrated, you're not going to have fertile cervical mucus. The other thing that's very helpful is grapefruit juice. So I know that sounds really weird, but consuming grapefruit juice during your fertile window can actually increase cervical mucus, and making sure that you're not having a lot of dehydrating things like lots of coffee or lots of caffeinated tea, or not sleeping, or soda, or things like that. So those are just some things off the top of my head that I would look at in this situation.
Yeah, and you and your partner start the elimination diet. I'm always banging away on that one, but so click on find the link how and why I do the elimination diet, and have both you guys do that, and you can figure out if there's any inflammatory foods in there causing sensitivities in your body. Okay, so Bridget, so on the theme of luteal phase, she's got, after 2 years of charting, found that my luteal phase varies so much. How variable should it be? Is it normal to have a short one every now and again? Hers is 12 to 14. Last month it was 11. She has unexplained infertility, so perhaps progesterone amounts each month lengthening and shortening the luteal phase.
So she doesn't have short ones, which is a good thing. So she mentioned the shortened one is 11. So that's a positive thing. And so I would first of all want to know, are you ovulating? That's the first thing that you want to make sure is to know if you're ovulating. So are you tracking your temperature? And are you seeing that temperature spike every month and also seeing the other clues of the cervical mucus being there and then drying up after that temperature spike? That's a pretty good clue that you are ovulating. So I would want to know that first. And then in terms of, it can vary. It definitely can vary month to month, but it sounds like your luteal phase is pretty healthy. You can continue to support that with seed cycling, a B complex. The B6 specifically helps progesterone, but the reason I say a B complex is that it just helps with overall energy and stress response. So the B vitamins help with stress. So that could be helpful if you have a lot of stress going on. And it's, most people can safely take a B complex. I'm trying to think of what else I would do. I think
with unexplained infertility, like in the functional approach, it's not unexplained. So look at other issues that are going on with your health. Like what else is happening? If you had a full thyroid panel, looking at antibodies, where's your vitamin D? Were you on long-term hormonal birth control? Start asking questions. Do you have acne? Do you have digestive issues? Are there mood issues? Like what else is happening? Because unexplained, it's not just, there's always something else to be able to look into, and kind of going into the diagnosis doesn't give you the whole picture.
Right. The luteal phase could be one aspect in an unexplained infertility on why somebody can't get pregnant, but there's usually something else. So, like you said, looking into other things, do you have other symptoms that could be a clue that there's something else going on? Do you have food sensitivities, blood sugar imbalances? Do you have a lot of stress? Are you not sleeping? Maybe you've got something going on with your gut. Maybe you've had a lot of colds or flus, or you've had to be on antibiotics a couple times in the past few years, and your good gut bacteria is just wiped out. And so your gut may not be in a place where you can absorb all of the nutrients from the foods you're eating. There's a lot of different possibilities. So I would just really start to dig deeper into that, and maybe even do look into coaching to dig deeper if you're not sure, so that we can work to see if maybe there's some other things that could be contributing to not being able to get pregnant right now.
And so then we have Alicia. So she's got some questions about water filtration. So reverse osmosis, is it good enough? Carbon filter, talking about caffeine. She loves coffee, and the alternatives don't cut it for her. So why is it bad to begin with? And then she has undiagnosed PCOS. It was told by her naturopath that I exhibit many symptoms that point to it: painful periods, lots of cramps on day one. So I guess so with the reverse osmosis, so it's not filtering out like pesticides and herbicides or the endocrine disrupting chemicals. So with that, there are better options. And also, I guess
it's also not putting minerals. They're also not putting minerals back in, and it is important to have minerals in your water. And even if they say they are putting minerals back in the water with reverse osmosis, so if you have a system that puts minerals back in, what is the form of those minerals? Because they may be putting a form of minerals back in that your body can't use. That's one thing to keep in mind. When it comes to filters, honestly, the best filters that I recommend is Berkey. So you can get the countertop ones, you can get a shower filter. And then the other company that I really like is Pure Effect, and they have several different options. So they have whole house filtration. They have one that you can attach to your sink. They've got shower filters. So they've got different options, and they are going to, get rid of the heavy metals, the pesticides, all of those things that you don't want in your water. And then if you use something like a Berkey or Pure Effects, I would be putting a pinch of high quality Celtic sea salt into your water just to get the mineral, and not Himalayan salt, because Himalayan salt, that pink salt, because it's in the caves, has a tendency to can store heavy metals like lead and iron. So you want to go with a gray or just a Celtic sea salt. And the easiest one to find on the market is Real Salt. So the Real Salt brand, you can find it in most grocery stores. Just put a pinch of that back into your water just so that you can get some of those minerals. And those minerals, when you put it in your water, actually help you to hydrate better. So if there's nothing in your water, then it's going to be hard. You maybe feel like you're drinking a ton of water, but still feel thirsty because you're not able to get that water into your cells.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with taking out fluoride, which is if you have a thyroid issue, you don't want to have fluoride in your water. And also when you're making sure you're using a water filter too, because you can get exposed to the chlorine from the vapors in the water. What else was I going to say? Oh, I had a little Berkey mishap where I had some water on the floor, and I thought I would decide to tip the Berkey to get extra water out, while the Berkey slipped on the water and shot Berkey water like literally all over my freaking kitchen. I'm like, oh my God. So that was not fun. So don't do that with the Berkey. Do not tip the Berkey. I have mine on like a little, it's weird. I have it on like a little plant stand, but the Berkey water, it is like this water. Before when I used to drink water, I'm like, why do I feel still like thirsty? It make your throat feel dry. This is so hydrating. So highly recommend the Berkey. Caffeine. We have you can check out it's in my book, Fabulously Fertile, the caffeine withdrawal protocol, but also there's one on the blog talking about if you are having caffeine to make sure that you don't go cold turkey. So you want to do half caffeine, so half decaf, half regular, and then down to decaf, down to green tea, and then down to herbal. Same with chocolate and pop, making sure you do that gradually and replacing it with water. There's a number of coffee alternatives. There's Dandy Blend, but then if you've got gluten sensitivity, that one's not being recommended. What's the other one? Ticino?
Taquino. They have a gluten-free. Yeah. I would say with caffeine and coffee, it works for some people and it doesn't work for others. So it's not to say that caffeine is bad, period, because it does have some good effects. Like it's been shown in some studies to actually be beneficial for brain health and Alzheimer's and things like that. Right. And so, and there's some compounds in there that are antioxidants, which are good, but for some people, it just does not work for them. So one of the clues I would say is that if you have tried to quit caffeine before, or the thought of quitting caffeine just makes you anxious, and you're like, there's no way I can do it, I cannot handle life without coffee, that's a clue that it's a problem for you and that you should try to remove it. And by removing it, even if you could remove it for a week or two and then try it again, it's similar to the elimination diet, but that's when you might be able to see whether or not it's an issue for you. Because if you have it again and then you all of a sudden feel anxious, or you get tension in your jaw, or you just really don't feel good, then coffee isn't working for you. And there's a lot of people that coffee just doesn't work for them. They love it. It tastes great. My husband loves coffee, but it's the worst thing for him. It destroys his gut. It destroys his microbiome. He gets eczema on his skin. He's tried all the different types and kinds, like mushroom coffee and bulletproof coffee that's supposed to be mold free, and it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that it's coffee and caffeine that does not work for him, and he's just settled on not having it, and he has yerba mate tea or matcha tea or green tea, and it's unfortunate, but it just doesn't work for some people. But if it works for you, I wouldn't say that it's bad. I just also wouldn't consume it in excess.
Yeah, and there's certain SNPs we can have in our DNA that basically we're not able to process it properly. And when I have it, I get like overly planny. I just get like swirling thoughts of like taking on the world. It's crazy. So it gets me like really hyper and then super irritable afterwards. And then I found out that, it's actually contributing to, every Monday or Tuesday I get these headaches because I'd go to, on the weekend, get a Starbucks that, a coconut latte or something. And then lo and behold, took that out, no more headaches. So sometimes it just doesn't work for us, which can suck because I still love it, but I was only doing it on the weekends and it was still having issues for me. And then question about undiagnosed PCOS. She has painful periods, lots of cramps on day one. What do you think about that one? Yeah.
I would need more information. I mean, painful cramps on day one, that can be normal. Some women will have those. That's not to say that cramps are, because they're normal or common, doesn't mean that they're
normal,
supposed to be there or normal, but that doesn't necessarily mean PCOS. There could be several other reasons for that. It could be that there's just a lot of inflammation going on, and so you're going to have more pain, especially if you're eating foods that you're sensitive to, like dairy, can cause a lot of cramping and pain. And so maybe it's just a matter of taking foods out that are inflammatory, maybe adding in some anti-inflammatory things like a good quality fish oil or some curcumin can sometimes be helpful. But I would want to kind of dig in and do some more testing and see what else is going on, and maybe take a look at your hormones so you can really see where your hormones are at before jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. Using the Dutch test is what we look to test, don't guess. So just kind of going into a couple other general questions that we get all the time. So how to improve my egg health? And again, I think people get focused on the egg health. And so the functional approach, we're looking at the whole body, looking at your whole health history, what else is going on. And obviously, so a lot of these things we've said right now are going to help your egg health. But if you go and take those general recommendations for egg health, are they the right ones for you? Yeah, obviously taking out some of the inflammatory foods like dairy and gluten and getting rid of processed sugar, looking at some supplements that can help egg health. A common one that's recommended is CoQ10. Like looking at food, we would dig further. So looking at food sensitivities, looking at gut health, and again, looking at your mindset around this. And again, we talked about making sure you're hydrated. So I think with the egg health, it's again looking at one thing where we're looking at the whole body. Thoughts on that one?
No, I think you pretty much covered it for the most part. I would focus on nutrient-dense foods, so making sure you're getting lots of nutrition, and rather than just focusing on you and your egg health, also getting your partner involved and having him focus on sperm health. That's important as well.
Exactly. And so we get this question a lot too about some of the basic supplements. So we don't recommend, self-diagnosing obviously or self-prescribing, but there are some basic supplements that you can add in right now. So we're looking at a prenatal, and we want to make sure it's a methylated folate prenatal. We like, at this stage right now as we're recording this, we like Seeking Health and Thorne basic prenatal. Anything else you want to say on the prenatal there, Brandy?
No, the most important thing is just making sure that it's high quality. So yes, you could go to Walmart or Costco or somewhere else to get a prenatal, but quality does matter. And so we are talking about brands that are practitioner brands or professional brands, but they are very high quality. They don't have fillers that have things like gluten, dairy, soy. So that's really important. So really focusing on the best quality you can. And my favorites really are Seeking Health and Thorne.
And then magnesium. So over 85% of us are deficient in magnesium. I used to get these eye twitches, horrible leg cramps, all sorts of other issues, which there's a huge list of issues that can be related to magnesium. So basically it's hard to get it from our soils. So having a magnesium supplement.
So with magnesium supplementation, it really is dependent on the person and the symptoms that they have. I would say across the board, I would recommend, obviously you're not going to want to go with like the basic magnesium supplement that you would get at any health food store. I would maybe look at doing topical magnesium for most people. It's going to work for most people. And I really like the Ancient Minerals brand. They have a spray, they have magnesium salts, and they have a magnesium lotion, and you can put it on the skin and it's really easily absorbed. So I would start there without being able to have an in-depth consultation on, kind of what your status is and having more information on you.
Yeah. And you just put that on your feet before you go to bed. And then digestive enzymes.
Enzymes, again, are another thing where it's beneficial, but there's always a caveat. The but is if you have a gut infection, some enzymes may not be ideal. So I would probably more so recommend a high quality probiotic. We love Megaspore probiotic. It is a professional brand, so you do need to get it from a practitioner. We do have that available to people. So if you're interested in it, you can reach out to Sarah. So I really like probiotic, and, things like making sure that maybe when you're making salad dressings, use apple cider vinegar. That can be really helpful for digestion.
And definitely check out the episode I did with Karan Krishnan from Megaspore. He talks about the probiotics, and it's a really cool episode. Definitely check that one out. And then the diet, which I've been talking about all along here. So you and your partner, again, it's not just about you, it's you and your partner starting the elimination diet. Check that out. Also, if there's an autoimmune disease, you can listen to, we had Dr. Sarah Ballantyne on talking about Hashimoto's. We talked about the autoimmune protocol diet. So you can listen to that one. And also there's another one with Monica Cox where we talk about the autoimmune protocol diet in detail. Now, Dr. Sarah Ballantyne is saying to start with the AIP diet right away. Sometimes that can be way too intense. We've seen when we work with couples, we have them start the elimination diet, and then if there's an autoimmune disease and we feel it makes sense to move to the AIP diet. Again, everyone is different, and we're not diagnosing, we're educating. So it's those are some options for you to consider.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I would do the elimination diet. Try to stick to whole foods as much as possible. So, you know, you can't, if you're eating the standard American diet and you're getting drive-through all the time, and then we tell you to go to the autoimmune protocol, yeah, that's going to be extremely hard. So I would, you know, stick to making foods as much as possible at home, eating foods as close to nature as possible, trying not to eat a lot of foods that are in a package. And that's going to give you a really good head start in terms of preparing your body and getting it ready for pregnancy.
And the last one we have questions. There's a lot of questions again about mindset. So first of all, it's really to get honest about what's going on with your mind. If you're into that, and we see a lot of type A, busy professionals, and they're achievers, everything they've done has worked, and now this is not working. And they're in this very pushing, let's like get this. And it's very tense and it's a lot of stress. So to be able to move from pushing to receiving, there's a podcast episode on that, of course, because of course there would be. Looking into incorporating mindfulness into your daily routine. Right now, we are all washing our hands on a very, very regular basis. So doing that mindfully, really, instead of just rushing through it, that will be an area to add mindfulness to your day. And if there is trauma, typically with infertility, there can be. So being able to have someone help you through that, either a therapist or looking at EFT, having a coach, having someone to support you through that. And then digging into the self-care piece, and whether it's meditation, yoga, walking, hanging out with your dog, you know, having a bath, reading, binge watching Tiger King, which I went down that rabbit hole, which was fun. It was good. Essential oils, which I have them going in my office all the time. When I come in, it makes me feel good. So just doing those things alone can just be really nice. Because a lot of times I think we're on this journey, we put our joy on hold kind of when we get to the destination of being pregnant, whereas right now is like a time to mother yourself.
I would also add for the mindset piece and for peace of mind is really resisting the urge to over analyze, over research, because unfortunately, there's a lot of information at our fingertips, and it's actually overwhelming sometimes. And there's so much information out there that you're going to get this information and have no idea like what direction to go. And so you may try 10 different things that you see people recommending on the internet, but it might not be ideal for you and your particular situation. So the best thing that you can do is really focus on the lifestyle aspects yourself. Eat right, move, exercise, have community, work on your stressors, have self-care, work on the traumas. That's extremely important. One thing, this is all about educating, but one thing that I'm extremely passionate about, because I do have kids, I wish I had worked on some of those things before I had them, because the time that you have after is limited. And it becomes harder, and it can impact how you recover from pregnancy. It can impact how you parent your kids. So it's an opportunity for you right now, before you become pregnant, to maybe work on some of those traumas and setting those boundaries and really standing up for yourself before, because it doesn't get easier after you have kids. Mm-hmm. So I would really, really advocate for that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And so if you're needing support with mindset, we do have a course starting actually on Tuesday, April the 21st. So tomorrow, as of recording, when this releases on April the 20th, and there's a few spots available. So you can go to Fab Fertile, shop, and then the mindfulness series. It's a 6-week online group mindfulness fertility series, and I co-facilitate it with a therapist. So if you need mindset support, that is a good place to start. If you're seriously considering working with us and you're ready to prepare your body for a natural positive pregnancy, and as we're recording this, we're right in the middle of the pandemic, post-pandemic, because right now they're not recommending to try naturally. What you need to do is go to Fab Fertile, and then you can click on book a free call, and this call is for you and your partner. So if you're considering working with us, I recommend that you book a call and we can dig into a plan that's right for you. So thanks again for joining us, Brandy, and hopefully everyone found this Q&A beneficial for them.
Thanks, everyone. I'm always glad to be here to answer and educate.
Melatonin is important for female fertility. It helps regulate hormones and maintain the body's circadian rhythms. Plus, it helps determine the frequency and duration of the menstrual cycle. Plus, it impacts sperm count and motility. Blue and green light negatively impact our melatonin production. That's why we recommend Blue Blocks, blue and green light sleep glasses to all our one-to-one clients. Simply go to Blue Blocks, BLUBLOX.com, and use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast at checkout to receive your 15% discount. That's Blue Blocks, BLUBLOX.com, and use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast. Hey there, I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 2 spots available per month to work with us. So the Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery call is for action takers, really people who are ready to move forward so they can finally have their baby. And if you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. So if you're seriously considering working with us, go to Fab Fertile, FABfertile.com, and click on book a free call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. That's Fab Fertile, FABfertile.com, and click on book a free call. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.